Okay, let's unpack this. When you first hear emotional intelligence, EI, what comes to mind? Maybe just, the opposite of IQ, or something that belongs purely in therapy. It often feels kind of separate from everyday mental health or well-being, doesn't it? But here's where our deep dive gets really interesting. Our sources show pretty clearly that the link between emotional intelligence and mental health isn't just some side thing. No, it's been empirically shown to be absolutely central to your overall well-being. It can even be like a deciding factor in really experiencing life deeply in a beneficial way. So yeah, much bigger than we might think.
Exactly. And that's really our mission here, to kind of give you a shortcut to understanding just how vital this connection is. We're going to look at how EI was first thought about, its sometimes surprising links to certain mental health conditions, and also how it connects to those really positive mental states. And this is key, how it can actually be developed. That's the empowering part.
Okay, so to really get this, we probably need to go back a bit. Where did this whole idea of emotional intelligence even start?
Well, it's been a bit of a journey. Our sources point out that actually as far back as the 1950s, you had the humanist psychologist Abraham Maslow touching on something similar. He used the term emotional strength, which was basically about, managing your own feelings well.
Right, setting the stage. Then we jump to the 90s, and that's when Peter Salovey and John D. Mayer really put emotional intelligence on the map professionally. What was their main point about someone with high EI? What did that look like?
Well, what's really fascinating about Salovey and Mayer is how they kind of broadened the idea of intelligence itself. They argued that people high in EI weren't just good at, say, introspection or self-awareness, managing their own stuff. It wasn't just about feeling things. It was about using those feelings to actually think more effectively.
And not just thinking about themselves either. Our sources really stress that Salovey and Mayer included empathy, right? Understanding others' emotions too. So it's less touchy-feely and more like almost a tool for dealing with complex situations.
Precisely, yeah. This access to emotional information, they argued, lets people with high EI shift their focus. They can zero in on what's most important in any given moment. Think about it, if you can filter the emotional static, you can concentrate on what really matters. It makes them, very adaptable in tricky spots.
That adaptability is interesting. How does that actually play out? Especially when interacting with other people.
Well, the sources suggest that people with good EI can actually influence situations and people around them. They do this by adjusting their own responses based on what they pick up from others' emotions. It's all about efficient communication, good social skills, almost like having an internal social GPS navigating the emotional terrain.
Okay, so we've got the origins. Now let's link it to something people often talk about today, EQ versus IQ. IQ, that's more problem-solving, abstract thinking. What do our sources say EQ helps us understand beyond just solving a problem, about life itself?
This is a really key shift in thinking that the sources highlight. Emotions stop being seen as chaotic things that our rational mind needs to control. Instead, they're presented as fundamental to how we experience everything, our inner life, the outside world, our values, even right and wrong. Emotions add, depth and meaning. They're like important landmarks on the map of human existence.
That's a big perspective shift. So, okay, beyond the general experience of life, let's get specific. The link between EI and actual mental health conditions. Our sources show a really clear connection between good EI and protection against some major ones, particularly anxiety and depression.
Right, and this is incredibly important. That protective effect makes a lot of sense when you think about it. Good EI helps you understand potential stressors better. So for anxiety, maybe the world feels a bit less overwhelming, right? It helps calm that intense hyper-alert feeling, maybe helps you return to baseline more easily.
And with depression, it seems to be about processing things. Like, if you're better at acknowledging your emotions, you're maybe better equipped to actually work through painful stuff like loss, which then helps you genuinely grieve, whether it's dreams, relationships, whatever, and actually move on rather than getting stuck. It's like building resilience through that emotional understanding.
Yeah, exactly. So we've seen how EI can buffer against the negative, like anxiety and depression. What about the positive side? While the link might not be quite as strong as the protective one, there's still a significant connection between EI and beneficial mental states. Positive well-being. Our sources definitely suggest that greater well-being is linked to certain facets of emotional intelligence.
Okay, and here's where it gets really specific about that upside. The sources mention three particular aspects: attention to emotions, emotional clarity, and the repair of detrimental emotions. And these were all found to be really strongly influenced by belongingness. Can you break those three down a bit?
Sure, attention to emotions is pretty much what it sounds like, just noticing what you're feeling. Emotional clarity is about understanding why you feel that way, making sense of it. And repair is about knowing how to shift yourself out of a negative state towards something more positive or constructive. And the really fascinating finding is how belongingness seems to, well, facilitate all three. It acts as a kind of bridge.
So basically, feeling like you belong makes it easier to notice your feelings, understand them, and manage the tough ones. That feels like a huge piece of the puzzle for actually developing EI, right? The secret sauce, maybe?
It really seems to be. The research indicated that participants reporting a stronger sense of belonging scored higher on those specific EI scales, and conversely, feeling rejected was linked to lower scores on those same scales. It just highlights that connection, that sense of community isn't just a nice to have. It seems pretty foundational for emotional skill building.
So where does this leave us? It sounds like, while maybe some EI is innate, the sources are pretty clear. Studies show emotional intelligence can be developed. It can be enhanced. That's really hopeful, isn't it?
It really is. And it circles back perfectly to what we just talked about with belongingness. The research strongly suggests that fostering that sense of belonging can significantly boost someone's ability to understand their emotions, manage them, relate them to others, and ultimately just feel more comfortable and accepted. You actually have some agency here. It's not fixed.
Okay, so wrapping this up, the big takeaway from this deep dive seems clear. Emotional intelligence isn't just managing feelings or the flip side of IQ. It's much more fundamental. It's deeply woven into our human experience with a proven, powerful link to mental health, both protecting us from things like anxiety and depression and also boosting our capacity for well-being.
Absolutely. And that brings up that really empowering point again. Yes, some might be innate, but our sources are clearer than it asks. EI can be developed. And that role of belongingness we discussed, how it seems to mediate attention, clarity, and repair of emotions, that's a really actionable insight.
Right. So knowing that fostering belonging can actively build your emotional intelligence, maybe the thought to leave you with is this. What's one small step you could take this week, maybe, to strengthen a connection? Or cultivate a bit more community in your own life? Understanding now how that simple action could actually ripple outwards, affecting your whole emotional world.